Right now, Chelsea are in the middle of one of the most significant weeks in their recent history, not just because of what happened in Paris on Wednesday night, not just because of the disciplinary fallout from the Arsenal match, but because of a decision made today that tells you everything about where this club believes it is heading. There are multiple stories colliding at once here. A captain committing his future, a winger facing punishment, a goalkeeper under scrutiny, a manager under pressure, and a fan base that has been forced to ask whether the project is really moving forward or just spinning in place. Let us go through every single piece of this story one by one, carefully and precisely. Because when you put all of it together, the picture that emerges is far more complex than any single headline suggests. Here is what was confirmed and reported. Reece James, 26 years old, has signed a brand new 6-year contract at Chelsea Football Club. The deal will run until 2032. The report, confirmed by David Ornstein, describes his journey simply and powerfully. From academy player to club captain, that is the headline. Now here is the analysis. A 6-year contract is not a small gesture. A 6-year contract for a player who is 26 years old means Chelsea are committing to Reece James as a core figure at this club until he is 32 years old. That is the peak and the second half of a professional footballer's career, being tied entirely to one club. One badge, one project. Think about what that means in context. Over the past 2 or 3 years, Reece James has suffered serious injury setbacks. He has missed significant portions of multiple seasons. There were legitimate questions asked openly across the football world about whether his body would hold up to the demands of elite football at the highest level. Those questions were real, they were fair, and Chelsea have answered them clearly. They are not walking away from this player. They are doubling down on him. The fact that this contract runs until 2032 tells you that the people making decisions at Chelsea have looked at James's injury record and decided it does not change their assessment of his value to the club. That is a statement of belief. That is not a routine renewal. That is a declaration. Reece James speaks on signing. He said there is still lots more to come in the future. He said he has won a fair few major trophies and they were great experiences and great memories. He said he hopes to make many more, and he said there are still trophies they need to win. He specifically mentioned winning the Champions League again, the Premier League and the domestic cups. He said clearly and directly that he believes he can win all of this at Chelsea. What is significant about those words is not just the ambition they contain, it is the clarity of them. James did not speak in vague terms about believing in the project. He named the trophies, he listed them, the Champions League, the Premier League, the domestic cups. He was specific and he said he believes he can win all of it here at this club. That specificity matters. A player who is simply going through the motions of a contract renewal does not list out trophies by name. A player who genuinely believes in what is being built around him does exactly that. He maps out what winning looks like. He says, I can see it. I believe it is possible. There is also something important in the phrase about having won a fair few major trophies already. James is not a young academy player with dreams. He is a man who has stood on a stage and lifted the Champions League. He knows what it takes. He knows what it feels like. And he is choosing to stay because he believes Chelsea can get back there. That is not sentiment. That is a calculated decision from a man who has options and chose this club anyway. Liam Rosén speaks on Reece James. Here is what head coach Liam Rosén said about securing James on a new deal. Rosén said he cannot stop smiling because Chelsea have secured the best player in world football in his position. He said James had many opportunities to leave this magnificent club. He said what matters is not just the size and stature of the club, but that James has come through from a very young age with belief and confidence in what Chelsea are trying to build. Rosén said they have had many conversations about it, and for James to sign and put his faith in them is a massive step. When asked why he considers James the best player in the world in his position, Rosén did not hesitate. He said James can play many different positions technically. He can score goals, he defends, he has athleticism and tactical understanding. But the thing that impresses Rosén most is his humility as a person. Rosén said James will be his leader for as long as he is at Chelsea. The language Rosén used here is extraordinary. The best player in world football in his position. That is an enormous claim, and Rosén doubled down on it when challenged, listing the qualities that support it. Technical ability across multiple positions, goals, defending, athleticism, tactical intelligence, and then on top of all of that, humility. That last point is worth sitting with. In a dressing room that, as we will explore later in this analysis, contains very strong personalities, having a captain who leads with humility is not a small thing. It is a foundation. Rosén mentioned that he has spent 2.5 months understanding James more deeply, and that process has only increased his respect for the player. When a manager speaks about a player in those terms, it tells you something about the relationship between the two of them. This is not a manager tolerating a big-name player. This is a manager who has found in James exactly the kind of leader he wants to build around. That alignment between manager and captain is one of the most underrated ingredients in any successful club. If this kind of deep analysis is what you are looking for on all things Chelsea, hit that subscribe button right now for Maya on Chelsea. Every story, every press conference, every development broken down with precision and context. Subscribe and stay ahead of the conversation. Here is what was officially confirmed. The Football Association issued a regulation and discipline update. Pedro Netto has been given a 1-match suspension and a £70,000 fine for misconduct that occurred after he was sent off in Chelsea's Premier League match against Arsenal on Sunday, the 1st of March. It was alleged that the player acted in an improper manner by failing to leave the pitch promptly and/or by using abusive words towards the match official following his dismissal in the 70th minute. Pedro Netto subsequently admitted the charge against him. An independent regulatory commission imposed these sanctions following a hearing. As a direct consequence of this ruling, Pedro Netto will miss Chelsea's Premier League fixture against Newcastle United on Saturday evening. This is a damaging situation for Chelsea, and not simply because of the 1-match suspension. 1 game missed is 1 game missed. That is manageable in isolation. The deeper concern here is the pattern it represents. Within the space of a few weeks, Pedro Netto has been sent off against Arsenal and has now received additional punishment on top of that red card. There is also the separate incident in the Paris Saint-Germain match on Wednesday where it was confirmed that the player pushed a ball boy and that UEFA have opened an investigation into that incident as well. 2 separate incidents, 2 separate governing bodies now looking at the same player. That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern of behaviour under pressure, and it is something that requires serious attention. The key facts here are clear. The misconduct charge relates specifically to what happened after the Arsenal dismissal, not during the match. Neto failed to leave the pitch promptly and was alleged to have used abusive language toward the match official. He admitted the charge, the independent commission imposed the ban and the fine. What this tells us is that Neto's emotional control in high-pressure moments is currently a real problem. Wanting to win is not the issue. Every elite player wants to win. The issue is what happens when frustration takes over and judgment disappears. At the highest level, in moments that define seasons, poor emotional control costs points and it costs games. Chelsea need Neto at his best. He is clearly a player of significant talent and importance to the team. But right now, that talent is being undermined by a series of avoidable situations that are taking him off the pitch at exactly the wrong times. Here is what Rosén said directly about the Pedro Netto incidents. On the Arsenal incident and the ball boy situation in Paris, Rosén said he had seen the incident back and it does not look good. He said he understands Pedro's perspective because the player wants to get the ball back in play as quickly as possible and wants to win for the club. But Rosén acknowledged there are ways you go about it. He said what impressed him was that it was Neto's own idea to apologise straight away. Rosén then drew a broader point. He said whether it is a goalkeeper, whether it is himself as manager or a player, mistakes happen. It is about learning from those mistakes and making sure they do not happen again. Rosén is threading a difficult needle here. He cannot publicly destroy a player who is still in his squad and whom he needs for the rest of the season. But he also cannot pretend the incidents did not happen or that they are not serious. The way he handled it was measured. He acknowledged it does not look good. He gave Neto some contextual credit for wanting to win and for showing initiative in apologising. But the core message was clear. There are right ways and wrong ways to compete. And this was the wrong way. The reference to Roy Keane is interesting. Rosén said a player with passion is going to react in the moment and that Roy Keane as a player probably did the same thing 20 times a game. He said he wants a culture of accountability in the dressing room. But the critical word in that framing is accountability. Keane demanded from teammates. That is one thing. Directing aggression toward a ball, boy or a match official is something else entirely. Rosén did not blur that line. He was careful to separate passion and accountability from behaviour that crosses into misconduct. Here is what Rosén said about the goalkeeping position at Chelsea. Rosén was asked directly whether the goalkeeper options at the club are good enough for a club of Chelsea's size. He said for sure. He said he made the decision to play Philip Jørgensen against Aston Villa and his performance was outstanding, contributing to a very good win against a very good team. He described Jørgensen's performance for 75 minutes as magnificent. He then acknowledged that Jørgensen made a mistake, Chelsea were punished, and the game was lost in a manner they should not have lost it. On Rob Sanchez, Rosén said Sanchez is one of the best goalkeepers in the league. He said there is no question about the quality of either player at this level. He described the situation as being about his own decision for each game and which way he goes in that position. When asked specifically whether Jørgensen is mentally ready to start again against Newcastle after what happened in Paris, Rosén said for sure. He said, everybody makes mistakes in life and in football. He said it is about how you recover and how you respond to a setback. He said he has no lack of trust in the two goalkeepers. This is one of the most delicate management situations at Chelsea right now. Two goalkeepers, both of them quality players, as Rosén himself acknowledged. But the narrative around Jørgensen after the Paris defeat has been loud and difficult. What Rosén is doing here is protecting his goalkeeper without pretending the mistake did not happen. He confirmed the performance was magnificent for 75 minutes. He confirmed the mistake happened. He confirmed the consequence, but he refused to let that single moment define the player or damage the player's confidence ahead of the next game. The separate incident involving Enzo Fernández throwing the ball at Jørgensen on the pitch in Paris adds another layer to this. Rosén was asked about it and his response was revealing. He drew a comparison to Roy Keane, describing it as a player with passion, demanding more from a teammate in the moment. He said Enzo loves Philippe and wants the best for him. He said in that moment Enzo was frustrated and that is normal. What this says about the dressing room is that there is real emotion running through this squad. Real frustration, real investment in results. That is not automatically a negative, but it requires management. It requires the kind of leadership that Reece James as captain and Enzo Fernández as a powerful dressing room figure are expected to provide together. Reece James addressed this directly when asked whether he and Fernández represent a calming leader and an aggressive leader. James said they work hand in hand. He said Fernández has a lot of influence in the dressing room, particularly with the non-English speaking players. He said they both ultimately want the best for the club and for the team to do well. That kind of dual leadership structure where two very different personalities complement each other is often a sign of a mature and well-functioning squad culture. Here is what Rosén said when questioned about taking a long time to make substitutions in the Paris match. Rosén said sometimes it is that simple. He said the team were in a really good place in the game. He said the last thing you want to do is disrupt the flow of the team by making changes for the sake of making changes. He said at 2 goals apiece, having watched the game back, he felt Chelsea were in the ascendancy in that moment. Then a mistake happened. It became 3-2, and the rest is history. He said he makes changes when he feels it is the right time for the team and he does not think too far ahead to the next game. This will be a point of significant debate among Chelsea supporters. The decision to hold back on substitutions when a game is in the balance is a legitimate tactical choice. There is genuine logic in not disrupting momentum when a team is playing well. Rosén watched the game back and his reading was that Chelsea were in the ascendancy at 2 goals apiece. He believed, based on what he was seeing, that the players on the pitch were the right ones to complete the job. What complicated that judgment was the mistake that followed. That is the brutal reality of football management. Sometimes the decision not to act looks brilliant. Sometimes the same decision, when a mistake follows immediately after it, looks catastrophic. Rosén did not shy away from acknowledging the outcome. He said the mistake happened and the rest is history. That is honest. That is not deflection. The more important point he made was about the Champions League tie overall. Chelsea are 3 goals down from the first leg. Rosén said he has seen teams come back from 3 goals down in the Champions League at home many times. He said with the number of chances Chelsea created in Paris, they still have a very good chance if they can score the first goal in the first half of the second leg on Tuesday. That is the position the club is in. Difficult, but not finished. Rosén was asked directly about Chelsea's recurring problem this season of dropping points from winning positions. He referenced specifically the home matches against Leeds and Burnley, where Chelsea dropped 4 points after being ahead. His response was as follows. He has been at the club for 2.5 months. The way he works with players is to sit down, go through clips and show them very specifically where improvements need to be made. He said sometimes it is 2 or 3 clips. What he wants to see after that is improvement. He said they do not have much time left this season, but they need to learn from those specific matches. He pointed to the 4-1 win at Aston Villa as evidence of what the team is capable of when performing consistently. The pattern of dropping points from winning positions is a systemic issue, and Rosén did not pretend otherwise. 4 points dropped at home against Leeds and Burnley are not small losses. Those are exactly the kind of results that damage a top 4 push and create the anxiety that runs through a fan base. What Rosén is communicating here is a process of correction. He has been at the club for 2.5 months. That is a relatively short period of time in which to change deeply ingrained habits. The clip-based approach he describes is methodical. It is about showing players the precise moment the problem occurs and asking them to recognise it and correct it. That takes time, it takes repetition, it takes trust between manager and players. The 4-1 win at Villa is the counter-argument to the doom narrative. That result showed the ceiling of this squad. The question is why the same squad can produce that result away from home and then struggle to hold winning positions against teams lower in the table. That inconsistency is the central challenge Rosén faces right now. Here is what Tosin Adarabioyu said in comments reported from an interview. On his playing time and rotation, Tosin said he admits that not being a guaranteed starter at Chelsea is not an easy situation. He said he is a competitor and he wants to help his team in every match by being on the pitch. But he also acknowledged the squad is high quality and sometimes the manager has to rotate it. He said he is not complaining. He said he continues to work hard to help the team as much as possible whenever he is on the pitch. On his nickname, Uncle Tosin, he said it is really flattering. He described Chelsea as a big Premier League club and said that at Fulham he was in a much different environment where his character helped him develop leadership within the group. He said at Chelsea it is a tougher dressing room with strong-willed players. He said the group puts egos aside to work toward the same goal. He said as a defender in an intense league, you absolutely have to show character to hold your own against great strikers. He said he works every day on the mental, physical and tactical aspects to perform well for his team. What Tosin Adarabioyu is describing here is the reality of being a quality player at a club with enormous depth. He is not a fringe player. He is not someone filling a gap. He is a player who knows his level and knows the level around him. And his response to that situation is mature and professional. The comparison between Fulham and Chelsea is revealing. He said Fulham gave him an environment where his character could emerge naturally into leadership. Chelsea, he says, is a tougher dressing room. That is an honest assessment of how competitive the environment is. And his response to that environment is not to push back against it. It is to adapt, to put the ego aside, to compete within a group of strong-willed individuals and still find a way to contribute meaningfully. The nickname Uncle Tosin and the way he speaks about it tells you something about how he is perceived in that dressing room. You do not earn a warm nickname in a tough environment by being difficult or closed off. You earn it by being reliable, grounded and available. That is what Tosin appears to represent in this squad. Here is what journalist Kave Solhekel said in comments from a Sky Sports News appearance. Solhekel said the problem Chelsea have is that some supporters are used to instant success. That is a short quote, but it carries a great deal of weight when placed against everything else we have discussed today. Chelsea in the Roman Abramovich era won things quickly and won things often. Managers arrived, trophies followed, and if they did not follow fast enough, the manager was gone. That created a culture among a section of the fan base where patience is not a virtue, where every stumble is a crisis and every disappointing result is evidence that something is fundamentally broken. What we are looking at today is a different kind of Chelsea. Reece James signing a 6-year deal is a long-term commitment. A 26-year-old captain pledging his future to a project that will not be fully realised for several seasons. That is not instant success culture. That is building culture. That is laying a foundation and being willing to wait for it to become something real. Rosén, in his press conference, referenced results like the Leeds and Burnley games with visible frustration, not because they define the project, but because they represent the kind of slip that happens when habits are not yet fully formed. He is 2.5 months into his tenure. The work is ongoing. The results are mixed. But the direction, as both James and the manager described it, is clear. The question for supporters is whether they are willing to evaluate this club on the direction of travel rather than the result of any single game or single week. Kave Solhekel's observation is not a criticism of fans. It is a factual observation about a culture that was created by years of instant success. Changing that expectation takes time and takes trust. That trust right now is what everyone from the captain to the manager is asking for. Let us take a step back and look at the full picture of today. Reece James has committed to Chelsea until 2032. He is 26 years old. He is the captain. He has named the trophies he wants to win here. That is a positive and significant development for any club trying to establish stability and direction. Pedro Netto has been banned for one match and fined £70,000. He will miss the Newcastle game on Saturday. There is also a separate UEFA investigation related to an incident in Paris. This is a player whose talent is not in question, but whose emotional regulation in high-pressure moments is becoming a recurring concern. The goalkeeper situation at the club is being managed carefully by Rosén, who has made clear that both Jørgensen and Sanchez are quality players at this level, and that his selection decisions are game by game rather than a fixed hierarchy. Chelsea are 3 goals down in their Champions League tie against Paris Saint-Germain, with the second leg to come on Tuesday. Rosén believes they still have a chance if they score first in the opening half. That is the challenge that now sits directly ahead of everything else. Estevão remains out with a hamstring injury. The manager confirmed they are being careful with him to avoid a recurrence at a crucial stage of the season, with Tuesday's match being monitored as a potential return point. And running beneath all of this is the broader question of consistency. This is a squad capable of winning 4-1 at Aston Villa and of creating significant chances against Paris Saint-Germain in one of the great European stadiums. The ceiling is clearly there. The task now is to raise the floor to match it. Rosén said it himself. He has been here for 2.5 months. It takes time. There is not much time left this season, but the work is being done. The conversations are happening. And the captain, who knows what it feels like to win a Champions League, has just told the world he believes this club can get back there. That is where Chelsea are today. Complex, pressured, but committed. And that in itself is worth understanding clearly. This has been Maya on Chelsea. If this analysis gave you the full picture, please subscribe, leave a comment and share this with every Chelsea supporter who wants more than just the headlines. See you next time.